So welcome to your examination process. We're excited to have you take this internationally aligned English language examination designed to recognize your achievement and support your academic and professional goals. Before you begin, please take a moment to carefully review the following test rules and conditions. These guidelines are essential to ensure a smooth and secure testing experience. Be always visible. Your head, face, and shoulders must remain in the camera frame. Keep your ears visible and uncovered where possible. Be in a quiet, well lit room with no one else present. Use a PC or a laptop with a front facing camera, microphone, and speakers. Ensure a stable internet connection of at least 30 megabytes. Ensure that you are using Chrome, Firefox, or Edge navigators. Keep your microphone and camera on at all times during the test. Share your entire screen. Toolbars at the top of and bottom must be visible. Use wired earphones for the listening and speaking components. Use complete all 36 room scans where instructed. Ensure your battery is fully charged. Don'ts and do's and don'ts. Don't log away from the screen. Don't wear hats or any ear face coverings. Do not leave the test window or open other tabs of applications. Do not allow anyone else in the room during the test except for authorized teachers or proctors. Dice, select the option. Where is the nearest station? She asked. She asked where the nearest station is. The car, the they make cars in the factory. Select the correct options. They make cars in the factory. Cars are made in the factory. Select the option that best illustrates the past progressive tense. She was talking. She was talking to her. Sorry. We have a test tomorrow, don't we? Just if we studied harder, we will. If he were taller, he would play basketball. If he had studied harder, he would have passed the exam. He looked at the mirror himself. On summer evenings, we used to play in the park until late. What does burning the midnight oil means? To get angry, to work late at night, to waste time. If someone is on cloud nine, how do you feel? Extremely happy. The book before the meeting started. She has read. She has been playing football years. What is the correct spelling for it? To ensure that something is done or happens. Guarantee. What is the correct spelling for it? The quality of being important or valuable. Significant. Significance. She gave him a handmade gift for his birthday. What does handmade mean? Crafted by hand. She plans to make business. If you set up a meeting, scheduling it. What does it mean if you turn up at a party? To arrive. Which sentence is correct? The woman who helped me was very generous. The woman who helped me was very generous. Just neither of the two routes will get you there on time. Both of the rights. He understands local costumes perfectly. He lived here for many years. He must live here. The engine is quiet, but the car won't start. There must be. There might be a problem with the battery. She felt nervous because she has never performed. Famous landmarks. The world is full of incredible landmarks, each with its own unique history and significance. One of the most famous is the Great Wall of China, which stretches over 30,000 miles. It was built to protect China from invaders and took centuries to complete. Today, it is a popular tourist attraction and a symbol of China's long history. Another well known landmark is the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. Completed in 1889, it was initially criticized for its design, later became a global icon. Standing at 33 meters, the tower attracts millions of visitors each year who come to enjoy the stunning views of the city from its top levels. The Statue of Liberty is another famous landmark located in New York Harbor, a gift from France to the United States in 1886. It represents freedom and democracy. The statue is 93 meters tall and welcomes visitors from around the world. Its torch and crown are among its most recognizable features. Finally, Machu Picchu, an ancient Incan city in Peru, is one of the most mysterious landmarks. Hidden in the Andes Mountains, it was rediscovered in 1911 by an American explorer. Historians believe it was a royal state or a religious site. The ruins attract travelers eager to see the stone structures and treasures built by the Incas centuries ago. What is the main purpose of building the Great Wall of China? To make the border of the country, to serve as a trade route, to protect the country from invaders. What does the text say about the Eiffel Tower's early reception? People did not like the sign at first. Um, mm, 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 mm. What is special about the Statue of Liberty's origin? It was built by American workers only. It was a gift from the United Kingdom. It was a gift from France to the United States. What are some key features of the Statue of Liberty? A sword and a helmet, a torch and crown, a large book, and a shield. A torch and a crown. Hmm. Why can visitors do at the top of the Eiffel Tower, see views of the city, watch a light show, visit a museum about Paris? See views of the city. What is believed about the purpose of Machu Picchu? It was terraforming, it was a royal site or religious site. What does the text say about the discovery of Machu Picchu? It was found by a local farmer in the 70s. It was rediscovered by an American explorer in 1911. It was never lost or hidden. What do all the landmarks in the text have in common? They are all famous tourist attractions in historical meaning. They are located in Europe. No.
Listen to the audio and answer. You will hear the recording 2 times. Hi, Meredith. Have you started looking for a new apartment yet?
Yes, Pamela, I have, but it's quite challenging to find something within my budget.
I understand. Renting can be tough, especially in this city. Have you considered looking for a roommate to share the expenses?
I have, but I'm a bit hesitant about living with someone I don't know.
I get that. It's important to find someone compatible. Maybe you should ask around among your friends or colleagues to see if anyone is also looking for a roommate.
That's a good idea. I'll give it a try. What about you? How did you find your current apartment?
I actually found it online through a rental website. It took some time and patience, but I eventually found a place that met my criteria and budget.
I'll have to give that a shot. Did you have to pay a lot up front when you moved in?
Not too much. Typically, landlords require first and last month's rent as well as a security deposit. But it can vary depending on the landlord and the rental agreement.
Got it. Thanks for the advice, Pamela. I'll keep looking and hopefully find something soon.
You're welcome, Meredith. Good luck with your search. Hi, Meredith. Have you started looking for a new apartment yet?
Yes, Pamela, I have, but it's quite challenging to find something within my budget.
I understand. Renting can be tough, especially in this city. Have you considered looking for a roommate to share the expenses?
I have, but I'm a bit hesitant about living with someone I don't know.
I get that. It's important to find someone compatible. Maybe you should ask around among your friends or colleagues to see if anyone is also looking for a roommate.
That's a good idea. I'll give it a try. What about you? How did you find your current apartment?
I actually found it online through a rental website. It took some time and patience, but I eventually found a place that met my criteria and budget.
I'll have to give that a shot. Did you have to pay a lot up front when you moved in?
Not too much. Typically, landlords require first and last month's rent as well as a security deposit. But it can vary depending on the landlord and the rental agreement.
Got it. Thanks for the advice, Pamela. I'll keep looking and hopefully find something soon.
You're welcome, Meredith. Good luck with your search.
What does Meredith say she will do after Pamela's suggestion? Try asking people she knows. What is Pamela? Final advice to Meredith. Okay, savings. Select the correct opinion. Only after the meeting, how serious the problem was. I realized. Póngalo aquí para ponerlo a cargar. I realized. Apenas lo empecé. They waited at the bus stop for an hour. ¿Dónde compraste esa funda?
No, la
¿Qué?
pila
Que ya le
se
explotó.
me hinchó, era.
Yo tengo una funda igual.
¿Sí?
Sí.
¿Cuánto costó? 20 pesos.
20 pesos el tempo.
No se prende la Nintendo.
No se prende. Es que ocupa cargar más.
Sigue donde mismo.
Sí, pero ya cuando acabe. Ahorita carga. Es que se tarda un montón. La otra vez que la puse en la casa se tardó un montón.
¿Qué van a comer? ¿O van a comer allá con tu mamá?
No, aquí.
¿Qué van a comer?
No sé. Al rato a ver qué hago. Yo iba a pedir una pepichita.
Entonces
Did
no hago
you hear
frijoles.
what I said? Asked me. See if I didn't hear what he said. If I had heard.
Mira, Mateo.
She has visited Paris 3 times.
Mateo.
By the time the storm hit, the hikers will have reached the shelter. She avoided talking about the situation because it was stressful. Which sentence is correct? She had been working all night when the power went out. She had been working all night. She had working. The book I borrowed was fascinating, which I borrowed. She's the teacher who helped me the most. I studied harder before the exam. I barely passed. O pon a cargar la mía. Si quieres.
¿Ese examen de qué es?
De inglés.
¿Para tu nivel o qué?
Ujú. ¿Ves? Te dije, déjala cargando todo el ratito. I mm, must have studied harder before the exam. She needn't have. She can come to the party in case she behaves well. As long as mientras. I've read books by this author, but not all. Several books. There wasn't any food left at the party. Any. If it was too late, I decided to go because. Se metió un gato amarillo. ¿Es el novio o quién es ese?
No, ese es la ñoqui.
¿Es la ñoqui?
¿Sí?
¿Y desde cuándo se hizo amarilla?
Pues es amarillo.
No, hombre, ¿qué le pasó? Es transfórmica esa gata. The book is mine, the one over there is hers.
Es que
¿Fueron por papel de baño?
Sí, sí lo compré.
¿Por qué no agarraste el dinero?
How do you spell? Porque pues, primero lo compré antes de venir. How do you spell the word for a person who designs buildings? Architect. Es esta. Shh, mira, se anda metiendo. He lives in a 3-story house. They dinner when I called. They were making. You can have both tea or coffee with your breakfast. Either tea or coffee. I want to watch a movie tonight.
Te pones una abrigo y se lo-
Neither.
Pero vas a llegar.
I want both to watch a movie tonight. Which sentence is incorrect? I wish I haven't said that. I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I could take it back. ¿Qué? A ver. I wish I haven't said that. I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I could take it back. Pues voy a usar esta. The report by the time the meeting started had written. The report had been written. The new policy after much debate. They finally came across. Carried out. Which sentence is incorrect? If he left earlier, he would have not missed the rain. If he had left earlier, he might have caught the rain. If he had left earlier, he would not have missed the train. If he had left earlier, he might have caught the train. Caught. If he left earlier, he would not have missed the train. Buy Nothing movement and sharing economy. The Buy Nothing movement encourages people to give goods and services to their neighbors for free rather than buying new items. Originating online and in local Facebook groups, it now spans thousands of communities worldwide. Participants post things they no longer need: clothing, furniture, tools, and others that claim these items without payment. This approach reduces waste, costs consumer spending, and builds social connections. The sharing economy, by contrast, often involves digital platforms to facilitate paid exchanges of goods or services. Companies such as Airbnb and Uber allow users to rent homes and cars from private individuals. While this model promotes resource efficiency, critiques point to issues like uneven regulations and the potential for commercial exploitation of local communities. Despite these differences, both movements rely on trust among participants. The Buy Nothing movement emphasizes reciprocity and community spirit, with members expected to contribute what they can. In the sharing economy, user ratings and reviews serve as a form of social proof. helping build confidence between strangers. Both approaches reflect growing concerns about sustainability and resource use. As environmental pressures increase, communities may turn more often to free exchanges or shared access, whether via gift-based networks or commercial platforms. Collaborative assumption continues to reshape how we acquire and use goods and services. What basic practice define the buy nothing movement? Facilitating short-term rentals of personal property online, offering unwanted items free of charge with one's community, organizing local yard sales to raise money for charity. Mm-mm-mm. Mhm. What platform initially enabled the Buy Nothing groups to form community-specific Facebook pages by created or by residents, subscription-based apps with no charge, global e-commerce sites listing is. How does a sharing economy differ fundamentally from Buy Nothing? Sharing economy. Think gifts. Ay, sí, cierto. Which advantage of the Buy Nothing approach does the author mention? Offering legal protection for long-term item exchanges, lowering both environmental and impact and personal expenses. How is trust built between users in sharing economy platforms? By mandating all the exchanges occur in public places through public user ratings and written reviews of each transaction and member. What worry do critiques express about companies like Airbnb or Uber? They strictly ban any use of personal vehicles or on their networks, limit participation to nonprofit community groups only. They can sell local markets and often face patchy government oversight. What common motivation underpins Buy Nothing and sharing economy models? Economic equality among members, a desire to resources more responsibly and curb waste, guaranteeing stable employment for community members. What future trend does the passage imply regarding consumption habits? Temporary access to goods and community sharing are likely to grow. Second-hand marketplaces will overtake sharing networks. Government-run exchange systems will regulate private platforms.
Listen to the audio and answer. You will hear the recording 2 times.
Hey, Jess, have you been following the news about space exploration lately? It feels like we're getting closer and closer to actually colonizing other planets.
Oh, yes. I've read about that. It's fascinating. Mars seems to be the primary focus right now, especially with companies working on missions to send humans there.
I know. It's hard to believe that just a few decades ago, landing on the moon seemed impossible. Now, we're talking about living on Mars. Do you think it's realistic for humans to live on another planet?
Honestly, I think it's possible. But there are so many challenges. First, the atmosphere on Mars isn't breathable, so we'd need advanced technology to create habitats that can support human life.
Right. And there's also the issue of food and water. They're talking about growing food in space and finding ways to recycle water. But I imagine it will take years to make that sustainable.
Exactly. Plus, the journey itself is risky. It takes months just to get there, and astronauts would face radiation and isolation. It's not like a quick trip to the moon.
True, but the potential benefits are huge. Colonizing another planet could help solve overpopulation on Earth and give humanity a backup plan in case something happens here.
That's a good point. It would definitely change the future of humanity. And who knows? Maybe colonizing Mars would be just the first step. We could explore even further, like to the moons of Jupiter or Saturn.
I think that's the dream. It might take centuries, but the idea of humans traveling across the solar system is mind blowing. But some people argue that we should focus on solving problems on Earth first, like climate change and poverty, before investing so much in space.
I get that argument, but I think both can happen at the same time. Exploring space can lead to technological advancements that might actually help us deal with some of those problems on Earth.
That's true. It is exciting to think about where all this could lead. Maybe in our lifetime, we'll see the first colony on Mars.
Maybe. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Hey, Jess, have you been following the news about space exploration lately? It feels like we're getting closer and closer to actually colonizing other planets.
Oh, yes. I've read about that. It's fascinating. Mars seems to be the primary focus right now, especially with companies working on missions to send humans there.
I know. It's hard to believe that just a few decades ago, landing on the moon seemed impossible. Now, we're talking about living on Mars. Do you think it's realistic for humans to live on another planet?
Honestly, I think it's possible. But there are so many challenges. First, the atmosphere on Mars isn't breathable, so we'd need advanced technology to create habitat for human life.
Right. And there's also the issue of food and water. They're talking about growing food in space and finding ways to recycle water. But I imagine it will take years to make that sustainable.
Exactly. Plus, the journey itself is risky. It takes months just to get there, and astronauts would face radiation and isolation. It's not like a quick trip to the moon.
True, but the potential benefits are huge. Colonizing another planet could help solve overpopulation on Earth and give humanity a backup plan in case something happens here.
That's a good point. It would definitely change the future of humanity. And who knows? Maybe colonizing Mars would be just the first step. We could explore even further, like to the moons of Jupiter or Saturn.
I think that's the dream. It might take centuries, but the idea of humans traveling across the solar system is mind blowing. But some people argue that we should focus on solving problems on Earth first, like climate change and poverty, before investing so much in space.
I get that argument, but I think both can happen at the same time. Exploring space can lead to technological advancements that might actually help us deal with some of those problems on Earth.
That's true. It is exciting to think about where all this could lead. Maybe in our lifetime, we'll see the first colony on Mars.
Maybe. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Which sentence is correct? We used to didn't factor economy indicators. We didn't use to factor indicators. We used to didn't. Está bien mal. It during the audit that we identified the compliance gaps. It was during the audit. That I appreciate most. The research results in which the entire theory depends turned out to be flawed, which is the correct spelling of the word meaning to relieve, alleviate. Choose the correct spelling of the word meaning to communicate, transmit. Which word carries a positive connotation? Slim or skinny? Slim. Both? No. Which term is often used with a negative connotation? Cheap, inexpensive, shoddy. Which phrasal verbs means investigate something thoroughly? Fall through, roll out, dig into. When he lost a match, he had to face the music and accept defeat. To confront reality. By the time the CEO arrives, the budget for hours. By the time the CEO or the board will have been discussed. Which sentence is incorrect? We had the contract to be revised. We got the contract revised by an external liar. No sooner than the power to return. No sooner had the lines gone out than the power to return. The results be verified. The findings will be published immediately. Huh? The data again, the analysts discovered an overlooked trend. Having reviewed the committee asked that each department submit a budget, outline its goals, and a timeline. The committee asked that each department submit a budget, outline its goals, and prepare a timeline. He claimed the figures were unreliable, but the external auditors didn't think so. Didn't think that. Our research team is attuned to subtle shifts in consumer and it was who uncovered the accounting error. It was him. Before filing the lawsuit, the company sought different and independent on potential reputational risks. Before filing the lawsuit, the company sought independent counsel. The preliminary results appear promising. We still require more robust data set before publication. The committee raised objections to the rise budget. The CEO demanded an immediate of the escalating crisis. Resolution. The developers released the update without proper testing. That explains the glitches. Must have released the update. Este está bien largote. From agora to algorithm, a concise history of democracy. The democracy's roots run deeper than the marble columns of ancient Athens. Yet the city's assembly remains the first well-recorded forum where ordinary citizens, adult males at least, drafted laws and judged magistrates, juries, and hundreds of pebble ballots, reinforcing the idea that political legitimacy springs from public deliberation. Still, half the population, women, slave people, resident foreigners, remain voiceless, a limitation that would haunt later reformers. 2 centuries later, the Roman Republic offered a contrasting temple. Power was intentionally mixed. Annually elected consuls present over civic affairs, but an aristocratic senate could veto rash initiatives, and popular tribunes could block elite overreach. And this intricate balance, admired by the founders of the United States, proved more durable than Athens' direct rule, yet still collapsed into the empire when military commanders outgrew constitutional restraints. Medieval Europe seemed to retreat from participatory ideals, but faint embers persisted. In 1215, rebellious English barons extracted the Magna Carta from King John, forcing him to acknowledge that taxation required constant and even a monarch must obey established law. Meanwhile, self-governing merchant leagues around the North and Baltic Seas elected council to coordinate trade policy, showing that commerce could nurture collective decision-making where royal authority was distant or weak. The 18th century Enlightenment gathered these precedents into a coherent doctrine. Philosophers such as Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau argued that sovereignty is lent by the governed and must be restrained by separated powers. Across the Atlantic, the U.S. Constitution fused Athenian rhetoric with Roman mechanics, constructing a written framework amenable by popular will. France's revolutionaries echoed similar themes, though their experiment repeatedly slid into authoritarian backlashes before stabilizing a century later. Industrialization in the 19th century reshuffled social hierarchies, forcing parliaments to address burgeoning factory towns. Britain's Reform Acts of 1832 and 1867 and 1884 gradually widened suffrage from landowners to skilled laborers, and eventually most adult men Concurrently, abolitionist and suffragist campaigns on multiple continents exposed the contradiction of democratic rhetoric coexisting with slavery and female disenfranchisement. By 1919, New Zealand, Finland, and many U.S. states had enfranchised women, proving that electoral boundaries were not immutable. The mid-century ushered in Samuel Huntington's third wave of democratization, defeated Axis powers, rewrote constructions, and embed civil liberties and multi-party elections. Portugal, Spain, and Greece shed dictatorships in the 1970s. Latin America juntas fell in the 1980s, and the Soviet Union's dissolution in 1991 allowed a flurry of electoral experiments from the Baltics to Central Asia. Newly independent nations in Africa and Asia struggled to reconcile majority rule with ethnic pluralism and commodity-driven economies, some succeeding, others sliding back into strongman politics. Today, democracy is both triumphant and fragile. Hybrid regimes stage elections while muzzling courts and journalists, so social media accelerates disinformation, challenging the informed consent that philosophers deemed indispensable. Yet, innovations, participation, budgeting on Brazilian cities, citizens' assemblies on climate policy in Ireland and France, blockchain verified audits in several U.S. counties demonstrate an adaptability that neither Athens nor Philadelphia could have imagined. The history then is less straight and sand than a braided river. Channels diverge, reconverge, and occasionally run underground before resurfacing. What persists is the conviction that power, to be legitimate, must answer to those it governs, a proposition endlessly renegotiated but seldom abandoned. The Magna Carta is presented in the passage primarily as evidence that even monarchs could be legally constrained by their subjects. English barons sought permanent exemption from taxation. According to the author, Enlightenment thinkers contributed which central idea to democratic theory. Economic prosperity automatically produces stable governments. Legitimate authority rests on consent and ability to prevent tyranny. Political power should alternate between hereditary families. Which 19th century development broadened political participation among industrial workers? In the context of the passage, Huntington's third wave refers to early modern city-state alliances in northern Italy, post-World War II and Cold War surges in global democratization, the collapse of direct democracy in classical antiquity. Newly independent states after colonization struggled chiefly with maintaining absolute parliament. Sovereignty of a court reinstating hereditary monarchies to unified populations, balancing majority rule against ethnic diversity and economic volatility. Which contemporary innovation is cited as demonstrating democracy's adaptability? Nationwide bans on targeted online advertising, mandatory voting enforced by blockchain fines, citizens' assemblies addressing climate policy in Europe. Which contemporary innovation is cited? Democracy's adaptability. Demonstrate adaptability that neither Athens. Today, democracy is both triumphant and fragile. Hybrid regimes, stage elections, while muzzling cards and journalists, social media accelerates disinformation, challenging the informed consent, even indispensable. Yet, innovation participation. The author's overall attitude toward the evolution of democracy, cautiously optimistic, acknowledging both vulnerable.
Listen to the audio and answer. You will hear the recording 2 times.
Welcome to today's podcast, where we discuss the role of technology in modern education. I'm joined by Sarah, an education technology expert, who will share her insights on this topic. Sarah, what do you think is the most significant change that technology has brought to classrooms today?
Hello. Thank you for having me. I would say the most impactful change is the access to a wealth of resources online. In the past, students were largely limited to textbooks and the knowledge their teachers could impart. Now, with the internet, they have a vast library of information at their fingertips, which encourages independent learning.
Right. And how has that affected the way teachers approach their lessons?
It has definitely shifted the teacher's role. Teachers are no longer just providers of knowledge. Instead, they are facilitators who guide students in navigating and analyzing information. This shift helps develop critical thinking skills, which are crucial in today's world.
Interesting. And how does technology cater to different learning styles?
Technology offers a variety of tools that cater to visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. For example, some students might learn better through interactive simulations or videos, while others might prefer reading articles or engaging in online discussions.
Do you think there's a downside to this reliance on technology within the classroom?
Absolutely. One of the challenges is ensuring that technology is used to enhance learning rather than distract from it. There's also the issue of digital inequality. Not all students have access to the same technological tools, which can create gaps in learning opportunities. The Great Digital Divide, it's called. But now it's going to be called the Great AI Divide.
That's an important point. Finally, how do you think technology will continue to evolve in education over the next few years?
As I said, I think we'll see more integration of artificial intelligence, especially in personalized learning. AI can help tailor lessons to the needs of individual students, allowing for more effective and customized learning experiences. However, we also need to balance technological advancements with human interaction, as that's still a key element of education.
Thank you so much for your insight. It definitely is something to keep an eye on. And thank you for joining us today. To you, listener, please make sure to give us your input on this interesting topic. See you next time. Welcome to today's podcast, where we discuss the role of technology in modern education. I'm joined by Sarah, an education technology expert, who will share her insights on this topic. Sarah, what do you think is the most significant change that technology has brought to classrooms today?
Hello. Thank you for having me. I would say the most impactful change is the access to a wealth of resources online. In the past, students were largely limited to textbooks and the knowledge their teachers could impart. Now, with the internet, they have a vast library of information at their fingertips, which encourages independent learning.
Right. And how has that affected the way teachers approach their lessons?
It has definitely shifted the teacher's role. Teachers are no longer just providers of knowledge. Instead, they are facilitators who guide students in navigating and analyzing information. This shift helps develop critical thinking skills, which are crucial in today's world.
Interesting. And how does technology cater to different learning styles?
Technology offers a variety of tools that cater to visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. For example, some students might learn better through interactive simulations or videos, while others might prefer reading articles or engaging in online discussions.
Do you think there's a downside to this reliance on technology within the classroom?
Absolutely. One of the challenges is ensuring that technology is used to enhance learning rather than distract from it. There's also the issue of digital inequality. Not all students have access to the same technological tools, which can create gaps in learning opportunities. The Great Digital Divide, it's called. But now it's going to be called the Great AI Divide.
That's an important point. Finally, how do you think technology will continue to evolve in education over the next few years?
As I said, I will see more integration of artificial intelligence, especially in personalized learning. AI can help tailor lessons to the needs of individual students, allowing for more effective and customized learning experiences. However, we also need to balance technological advancements with human interaction, as that's still a key element of education.
Thank you so much for your insight. It definitely is something to keep an eye on. And thank you for joining us today. To you, listener, please make sure to give us your input. Interesting topic. See you next time.
Under no occasion should confidential documents be. Did you realize the true cause of our decision? Not until much later. Had I realized the deadline was yesterday? The committee approved the proposal that was submitted. They had assumed that the artifacts were lost forever. It was assumed for the artifacts to have been lost forever. She had been waiting a long time. She shouldn't have been waiting long. The coffee still hot when I arrived. Shh. Mariana writes poetry more that I can. There was widespread that the policy would fail without public support. Assumption. No matter persuasive as his argument, the committee remained unconvinced. When a politician is described as a dark horse candidate, it means they have a dubious reputation. They are likely to lose, have unexpected potential, or will surprise. Which sentence uses a noun form instead of verb phrase to sound more formal? Should understand more about climate change. Change more to increase the understanding. This time next year, the company will have been implemented. Will have. The scientist's theory was dubious. She couldn't the heavy box bear. Despite the heavy rain, the match continued until the end. The game was stopped due to heavy rain. The match was cancelled. The match went on even though it was raining heavily. Which sentence is incorrectly uses a form that should show an early recognition before response. Having been recognized mistakes that hindered projects, the engineer designed a failsafe. Recognizing the mistakes that hindered projects, the engineer designed a failsafe system. Having recognized mistakes that hindered projects, the engineer designed a failsafe. Okay. Which sentence uses a wrong form to show that funding was secured before the expanding programs? Having secured unprecedented funding, the institution expanded internationally rapidly. Having been secured unprecedented funding, the institution is no evidence. Choose the most appropriate formal word to complete the sentence. Kindly. The firm's IT infrastructure was outdated. Is slightly. Success seemed highly improbable. Pressed on vaguely. The reason why the committee postponed the vote was a lack of quorum. It was on the very last page that the critical error appeared. Select the antonym of garrulous, reticent, voluble. Excessively talkative. Reticent. Literature as a nation builder, text, myths, and emotional architecture of belonging. When political scientists maps the forces that bind citizens to a flag, they commonly foreground constitutions, anthems, and martial victories. Yet, over the long arc of modern history, novels, poems, and plays have arguably proven the more durable adhesive. The United States, for instance, emerged from the crucible of revolution with minimal folklore of its own. The Federalist Papers clarified governance, but it was James Fenimore Cooper's frontier sagas and Walt Whitman's ecstatic catalogs that furnished emotional grammar for Americanists. Comparable dynamics surface elsewhere. Irish identity, chronically suppressed under British rule, coalesced around the Gaelic revival's verse, while post-colonial India found narrative cohesion in literally telescoping of Mughal grandeur. Gandhian resistance of village realism. Critically, literature realizes national feeling by constructing what Benedict Anderson termed imagined communities. Print capitalism permits millions to ingest the same metaphors, and ink performing that collective reading individuals and simultaneously fellowship with strangers. Anderson stressed that a morning newspapers deadline does much as symbolic work as a raised flag. Nevertheless, fiction intensifies the effect by dramatizing abstract ideals through flesh and blood characters. Consider 100 Years of Solitude. Garcia Marquez Macondo is geographically fuzzy, yet for Colombians it evokes a shared psychic theory where banana massacres and hurricanes refract real histories without the blunt instruments of parliamentary debate. American letters complicate matters by rehearsing an ongoing negotiation with plurality. Toni Morrison, the senator's voices omitted from canonical narratives, insisting that the Republic's origin myth, freedom, is inevitably doubted by bondage. In Love, the spectral past refuses, quite Innerman reminding readers that national identity is a less finished tapestry than a loom in constant motion. Similarly, Louise Erdrich's interconed Chippewa novels braid trivial memory with contemporary law disputes, demonstrating that sovereignty can be nested, contested, and simultaneously affirmed. Through such fractal storytelling, literature contests the notion that a nation is a monolith. Rather, it becomes a palimpsest where each inscription retains ghostly traces of the one beneath. That instability does not weaken allegiance. Paradoxically, it strengthens it. Studies in cultural psychology suggest that narratives accommodating ambiguity engender what Dan McAdams calls a redemptive self at the collective level. Citizens internalize hardship yet anticipate renewal. Herman Melville's Moby Dick offers a nautical microcosmic. A polyglot crew sails under democratic discipline, but the voyage founders and captain abhors absolutism. The United States still cites the novel to interrogate leadership, fanaticism, and ecological hubris, thereby sustaining civic introspection without resorting to state doctrine. Economic dimensions follow nations export books as a soft power. Translation of The Great Gatsby circulate capitalism, self scrutiny, while South Korea's world conquering webtoons seed global appetite for Hangul and K-pop. Grant programs such as Literature Island or Germany's Growth Institute invest strategically in translation rights, betting that persuasive stories will lubricate trade negotiation years later. Even domestic markets wield clout. After Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie half of A Yellow Sun reignited debate in the Biafran War, Nigeria updated school curricula, signaling official recognition that narrative memory guides policy. Yet, literature's nation-shaping capacity is not unidirectional. Censorship regimes from Tsarist Russia to contemporary autocracies clarified that authorities fear more than bombs the contagious interiority and novel can spark. Ironically, attempts at suppression of her sharpened attacks emblematic status. Pazernak's Dr. Zhivago becomes shorthand for individual conscience against collectivist dogma precisely because Soviet gatekeepers banned it. In the age of algorithmic feeds, suppression assumes subtler guides, platform demotion or data throttling, but the underlying premise endures. The police narrative is a police that emotional boundary citizenship. Ultimately, literature entrains citizens to imagine their homeland as a story still being written, where official archives crystallize events, novels and poems supply counterfactual space, inviting readers to rehearse alternative futures. National identity, then, is less a static portrait on a passport than the ever-editing manuscript tucked into its sleeve. A manuscript annotated by successive generations who, throughout reading and writing, decide which papers merit boldface and which lines fade to footnotes. What is a key enhancement of Anderson's concept of imagined community? ¿Dónde viene Anderson? Command F. Ya, gracias. Critical literature naturalizes national feeling by constructing the Benedict Anderson termed imagined communities. In the discussion of Morrison's work, the phrase origin, myth, freedom is inevitably doubted by bondage, serves primarily by rehearsing an ongoing negotiation with plurality. The censor's voice omitted from canonical narratives, inciting that the Republic's origin, myth, freedom, undercover resolve contradictions at the core U.S. identity. Origin is How does Edric's portrayal of sovereignty differ from traditional nation-state models? Sovereignty. Edric. Sovereignty. The Melville example is introduced chiefly to illustrate literature's capacity to. The Melville example. ¿Dónde viene eso? Which consequence of international literature export programs does the author highlight? They primarily serve to present Yo creo que es más bien esta. Literature export. Regarding censorship is implied in the passage. Suppressing a book often magnifies its symbolic influence. Government bans occasionally led to increased skepticism rather than trust among its citizens. Censorship can sometimes obscure a work, making it less accessible but not forgotten. The reference to Paternak's Dr. Zhivago primarily supports the argument that literature can influence cultural identity. Which statement best captures the author's view of national identity? It is influenced by widely accepted narratives. It is shaped by foundational documents. Some may have read the manuscript.
Listen to the audio and answer. You will hear the recording 2 times.
I hate all this news I've been getting on my feed. It feels like every time I open Twitter, I'm inundated with sensationalized headlines, viral sound bites, and half truths designed to grab attention rather than inform. The platform seems less like a tool for meaningful discourse and more like a battlefield for propaganda, where every tweet is a calculated move in some larger political game. Don't you think the way Twitter condenses complex issues into 280 characters forces politicians and even the public to prioritize punchy rhetoric over nuanced debate?
Absolutely. It's radically transformed how politicians engage with voters. Platforms like Twitter and Facebook allow for direct communication with the public in a way that wasn't possible before.
True, but it is much more nuanced than just direct communication. Social media has become a battleground for shaping not only public opinion, but also the emotional tenor of political discourse. Politicians now have the ability to bypass traditional media entirely, crafting their narratives in a way that aligns with their strategy. At the same time, this level of control exposes them to amplified scrutiny. Every word, every post can be dissected and weaponized by opponents or critics. It's a double-edged sword that demands a careful balancing act.
Right. And the speed at which information spreads is unprecedented. A single tweet can go viral in minutes, reaching millions of people. That kind of rapid exposure can make or break.
Exactly. But the immediacy comes with significant risks. The rapid spread of information, often without proper fact checking, has created an environment where sensationalism thrives over substance. It's not just misinformation, but also the way headlines and sound bites are manipulated to evoke strong emotional reactions. This can distort the public's perception of political issues, reducing complex debates to polarizing oversimplifications.
Exactly. Social media platforms haven't yet figured out how to properly regulate the spread of false information. That's leading to confusion and division among voters.
Precisely, and misinformation operates on multiple levels. Beyond outright fabrications, we're also dealing with selective framing, presenting half-truths or omitting context to steer public opinion. What's particularly concerning is how this erodes trust in legitimate institutions. When voters can't distinguish credible sources from questionable ones, the entire democratic process suffers. It is a crisis not just of truth, but of trust.
Yes, that's a huge issue. The algorithms are designed to show people content they're more likely to agree with, which means we're all living in our own information bubble.
And part of that confusion stems from the algorithms themselves. These platforms are designed to maximize engagement, which often means promoting content that provokes outrage or fear, emotions that are highly shareable. Unfortunately, this doesn't just spread misinformation. It also deepens societal divisions. By prioritizing clicks over clarity, social media companies have inadvertently become architects of polarization.
It's tricky. While more regulation might help with misinformation, it could also infringe on free speech. Striking the right balance is difficult.
Yes, and these echo chambers are more insidious than they first appear. They don't just reinforce pre existing beliefs, they often radicalize them. When people are exposed exclusively to content that validates their perspectives, they lose the ability or their willingness to engage with opposing viewpoints. This isn't just a political issue, it's a societal one. It's reshaping how we interact with each other, fostering an environment where consensus feels almost unattainable. Thank you for listening, and sorry for venting so much. It's been stressful looking at all this disinformation and disheartening news. I hate all this news I've been getting on my feed. It feels like every time I open Twitter, I'm inundated with sensationalized headlines, viral sound bites, and half truths